You know, one of my favorite things about this new studio setup is how different I can make things look just by the click of a button. Using the Philips Hue stuff in the ceiling and all the way around, Nanlight as the main key light, ooh! There's a couple of different setups that get in Philips Hue app and you can customize everything on your own. Check this out, we're gonna have a little bit of Malibu pink, va? Oi! Nice! Arctic Aurora! Looking good, all blue, a little bit of warm tone. Now we can take a relax. I've also connected the Prime logo to a smart plug. Boing. Ah, nice. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're gonna talk about two of my absolute favorite Prime lenses. Just want to take an opportunity here and say that if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe because we are on the road to 1 million. I'm saying it right now. We're gonna crush 1 million subscribers on this channel this year. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but wouldn't that be so sick though? Now we're at 608,000 subscribers, which is more than I could have ever imagined. And it's wild to think that those of you that are watching this video are sitting at home, watching, spending time hanging out with me. Thank you, I appreciate that. Let's dig into the first lens. What I got right here is the 24mm f1.4 GM lens. Now, I have been using this lens since 2019 as one of my absolute best go-to prime lenses for anything. Before we dig deeper into this, I will say that this is starting out to become an old lens. Like the autofocus system is not quite there when you compare it to some of the newer lenses, and it does feel like it's a little bit outdated, and it would be so good if Sony could come out with the 24 1.2. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory as to why I liked this focal length so much. So, for those of you that has been around this channel, you probably saw my poker B-roll whenever that came about 5 years ago. And then you had the office B-roll, you had the hacker B-roll, you had the blacksmith B-roll. There's so many B-rolls. How many B-rolls did I even do? I've kind of forgotten. Anyway. Skit i det, as we say in Göteborg. I remember the first time when I tried this lens out, and I was sort of like blown away about how you can get such a wide perspective of 24mm. When you're using that on a full frame camera, it gives you this wide field of view that doesn't really feel distorted. It still feels like a natural kind of focal length, but you can also blur out the background of your subject even though you have this wide field of view. And for me, that was something that made it possible to actually shoot things that I wanted to shoot with just one lens. When you're shooting at 1.4 though, the focal plane is like this thin, so it's very hard to keep things in focus. But when you start to play around with manual focus on lens like this and do a little bit of handheld movements, that is where you get those magic shots. But also when I'm shooting music videos and cinematic commercials and anything else except for B-roll, even these talking head videos that I usually do here in the studio is actually shot with this lens because it just looks so good. It's kind of a lightweight lens and it doesn't take up too much space in your camera bag. I do feel that if I were to choose between this and a 1635 on the go though, I would probably choose the 1635, mainly because I usually do vlogging whenever I'm on the go and I'm not doing cinematic stuff. But if you are doing cinematic stuff and you're doing commercials and you're doing client videos where you want to have that extra pop to your videos, then having something like this, a 24 1.4 is so freaking good. I didn't think I'd make this video now, 5 years later since I bought this lens, and still say that this is one of my absolute favorite lenses. And the amount of profit that this lens alone has generated to my business is wild. And that is also something that I want you to think of when you go out and about to invest the money into something like this. Is it actually going to help you generate more profit to your business if you are investing money into something like this? If the answer is yes, go for it. Crush the videos. But if the answer is no and you just want it for fun, just make sure that you have enough money to actually spend. Don't buy this lens on credit and just like, I'd highly suggest you to sort of like rent it and give it a try, loan it from a friend or something. But I feel like having a prime lens like this in my kit has absolutely helped me to become a better videographer. All right, the next lens that I want to talk about though is a lens that I almost hated. Not the lens itself, but the focal length. It was like I never understood why you were to shoot with this focal length. It was like, oh, looks like shit. Can't get enough. Can't, like, it's too tight. It's not too tight. Like, I don't know where to be. Like, how do I capture this frame? But when I hang out with Peter down in Italy in 2022 and I tried out his Canon camera with this lens attached, I was almost instantly sold on it. I'm of course talking about this behemoth, which is the 50mm f1.2 GM lens. Now, I have never been a fan of the 50mm focal length. It just didn't work for me. I was more like, 24mm combined with 85. I don't need to have anything in between because I always tended to go up to the tighter focal length. But when I tried this lens out and, took some photos of Peter and shot a little bit of B-roll, it felt so natural to me. And that was kind of a weird thing because I've never felt that with a 50mm lens before. But being able to literally obliterate the background with blur was something that changed my perspective on it completely. And that is thanks to the f1.2 on this lens. If you saw my last video where I talked about camera gear that I use on a daily basis and things that I think is great for any beginner to buy, all of that B-roll that I showed you off the product, like the good kind of B-roll, the camera gear porn, if you may, that was shot with this lens. And it's very hard, very hard to keep the subject in focus when you're using manual focus and you're staying at f1.2, but it just looks so good. This lens is not only good for that kind of B-roll. I actually used this lens on my FX6 when I shot one of my latest music videos for Dead by April. And we were in this dark garage looking room with flames and pyro and lights flickering everywhere. And since we didn't have big of a distance to the backgrounds from the subjects, I needed to have a lens with a wide aperture to be able to have that separation of the subject and the background. That is where this lens came in handy. I did not expect to be able to shoot in autofocus because of the lighting scenario, but I just flicked into autofocus, dragged it down to 1.2, mind blown. I was literally standing there looking through the footage. It tracked the eye of both Pontus and Christopher like dead on. So wild to see that even in that dark of a space and that weird lighting scenario, it worked so well. Being able to have that separation between the background and the subject sometimes is a crucial thing. And that is where both of these lenses are freaking masters at what they do. If you combine these two lenses, then you have probably one of the best setups that you can get to make anything look and feel cinematic. But if you're on the go, like if you're doing a lot of run and gun stuff, then you don't want to be locked down to a prime lens. In that case, I'd probably go for some sort of zoom like the 24-70, the 16-35, depending on your own feeling of what it is that you want to create. But if you do have the time and the possibility to choose the focal length, then there is no better thing, in my opinion, than prime lenses. And I am so freaking hyped on seeing a 24mm f1.2. I promise you, I'm gonna make another B-roll if that happens. That's a promise, right now. Okay? Pinky. I still like the Batis 85 though, but I haven't used this as much since I bought this lens. Think about that. I would love to know, what is your favorite lenses? What do you think about these two lenses? And why do you think that these are good or bad? Drop a comment down below. I'm gonna drop a link in the description if you want to check them out. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video. We're on the road to 1 million, ma! Let's do it together. Peter from Sweden is saying, hello!